You're listening to the Music Tech Teacher Podcast, episode number 23. Welcome to the Music Tech Teacher Podcast. Music tech tips, lesson ideas, advice, news, and interviews, especially for music teachers. Brought to you by midnightmusic.com.au. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Music Tech Teacher Podcast. I'm your host Katie Wardrobe from midnightmusic.com.au, the place for music teachers to get the help they need using technology in music education. If you'd like music tech lesson plans and online courses plus personalised support, I have a special offer for podcast listeners to join my online community. You can find that at midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. My guest today is middle school teacher Josh Emmanuel from New York, who has been running some engaging music and coding classes with his grade 6 students. Josh uses Scratch software, which is free, and also the MaKey MaKey invention kit. Now, even if you're a total beginner when it comes to music and coding, I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. Josh and I mentioned quite a few resources and links, and you'll be able to find those in the show notes for this episode at midnightmusic.com.au/23. I hope you enjoy my chat with Josh. Today's guest is Josh Emmanuel. Josh is a music educator, percussionist, composer, and a music technology specialist. He has a master's degree in music technology and also a bachelor's in music education, where his major performance instrument was percussion. Josh is currently teaching middle school general music in Nanuet, New York, and he loves to go skiing when there's enough snow. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie. I'm happy to be here.
It's excellent to talk to you. So where do you go skiing when there is snow?
My dad and I like to go up in the Northeast U.S., Vermont, upstate New York. Last year we got out to Colorado, but this past winter there wasn't enough snow to really go anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to ask because here in Australia that's very much the case. We have a ski season of about 2 weeks or so. Not really. I'm kidding. But it's very small window and it's basically dependent on is there enough snow this year or not. And some years there's just a terrible snow season. I don't know how the businesses survive, when it's a bad one. But sometimes it's really great. I think last year was a good one. So I don't do a lot of skiing. I was more into rollerblading, which is not the same but sort of similar. And until I got injured just recently and I've decided I can't rollerblade anymore. So
oh no.
Yeah, I know. It was, I was talking about my injury. I fell in a seated position and fractured my, the bottom part of my spine. Yeah, it's not very good. And but when I've been telling people about that, a lot of them talk about snowboarding and how that injury is really common in snowboarding accidents too, because the same sort of thing.
I could see that.
Falling over all the time on your backside. Not so good. Anyway, so I wanted to get you on the show because I'm currently putting together this, workshop about music and coding and doing some training materials for my online community around the topic. And, we chatted on Facebook and I know you're doing some programming with your grade 6 students around Scratch and using the MaKey MaKey invention kit. So I'm really keen to hear about, more about what you're doing. And for those listening, if you're not sure what any of that is, it's okay. We'll talk it all through and explain everything. But it's a really great area where students can be really engaged by combining this coding stuff with music, essentially. So why did you get started with coding with your students? What was the thing that started you off in that area?
Yeah, it all started before I was teaching in Nanuet. I taught for a year covering a sabbatical at where I did my undergrad in SUNY Potsdam at the Crane School of Music. And while I was there, I was able to audit a class that one of my colleagues was teaching on computer music programming.
Oh, cool.
And we did a lot of stuff with RTC Mix and Pure Data and Max, which I had played around with a little bit in grad school. And when I got to Nanuet, I just started showing some of my stuff to my kids, just to kind of show them some of the other things that are out there besides just band, orchestra, chorus, guitar, garage band, all the things that they already knew about, just to kind of open their experience with what you can do and how other ways to make music. And then the summer after my first year, I was at a conference at New York University at NYU And Eric Rosenbaum, one of the creators of MaKey MaKey and who was involved in the creation of Scratch from MIT, was at the conference talking about it. And I said, this is exactly what I need.
Yeah, you are so lucky to have met him and to be at NYU. They do this conference every year, don't they? I think around August or so. Yeah, and I looked, I was thinking, can I do that? Can I make it there somehow? Because I really want to go and spend some time with them and chat to them, because they're doing some fantastic, innovative stuff there, and pretty much all the cool stuff that's coming out, I don't know, is often coming from them at NYU. So, wow,
I'm really
lucky.
excited. I'm starting my doctorate with them in the fall.
Oh, no way. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really cool. Yeah, I might try and get there next year somehow. Maybe not to that conference, but I might just go and hang around there for a few days and just,
Absolutely.
Park myself in their building.
Well, you'll have to let me know. I'll have access by then.
Okay. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, that's great. Even better. Oh, that's fabulous. So, what did you see Eric do in that session? Was he showing examples of, incorporating it with music education? Because was the conference for music educators primarily?
Yes.
Yep.
It's called the Impact Conference.
That's right.
Interactive music or multimedia, something along the lines of multimedia and performance art and technology.
Yes.
I don't remember exactly what he was doing, but he was showing us Scratch and MaKey MaKeys, and somebody else was there with Little Bits.
Yeah, which is another little synthesizer building kit, isn't it? Yeah. So just briefly, we'll talk more about Scratch and MaKey MaKey and explain to everyone what they are. But Scratch is the software essentially that runs the actions, to make something happen. And so that's the coding part. And then the MaKey MaKey invention kit allows you to use external things to control what's going on in Scratch. Is that sort of a vaguely correct?
Yeah.
So,
The MaKey MaKey kind of tricks your computer into thinking you have an external typing keyboard.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can use it with anything. It doesn't have to be with Scratch.
So tell them some examples of things, because there's some well-known examples. When you go to the MaKey MaKey website, it's quite funny. They use funny things as your
one of the best known. One of the best known examples is the banana piano.
Yeah.
Where they wire up a bunch of pianos to the computer, and each one can be playing a different note.
Yeah.
There are tons of videos on YouTube of different musical examples.
Yeah, and I think is it Eric that's done a compilation, or one of the others maybe has done two compilations of, and I'll link to those in the show notes. They're fantastic examples of using the MaKey MaKey in musical ways. There's, like I think the first video starts off with a girl playing she's playing a series of flowers that are in vases along a desk. It looks amazing. So she just touches each flower and each one gives off a different pitch, and it looks beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And there's some other fantastic ones.
There are some with the conductive paint and conductive ink, which are beautiful to look at
and
also sound really cool.
Yes, yeah.
And I would love to get my hands on some of that conductive paint in my school, but
well, I actually saw some.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, I was mentioning to Josh that I've just ordered my MaKey MaKey kit, which should arrive today, hopefully. And on the website where I bought mine, an Australian distributor, they actually were selling the conductive ink, and I was like, should I get that now? I probably should have, shouldn't I? Anyway,
maybe.
There's many other options for it.
I've been using a lot of aluminum foil and Play-Doh.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go and up my supplies of those, I think, too, which will be fun.
This was the first year I had to put Play-Doh on a purchase order, which was kind of fun. But
hilarious. So we'll step back and we'll go through a little bit more detail about how everything works. But first of all, I mean, I think this is a question that comes up a bit. What would you say to someone who asks, why should we do coding with students in music classes anyway? I mean, they've got all these other great things they're doing performance-wise or composition or, literacy stuff. And so what does the coding do that's, what's its special superpower?
Yeah, well, I think the first key, and I know this has been mentioned in some of your other podcast episodes, is that this is not to replace anything else that's been going on.
Yeah.
This isn't meant to replace band, orchestra, chorus, or any of the traditional classical music education that happens. This is just another outlet. And I think that students should have as many tools as possible to create music that we can give them.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, I really like that theory.
And I think the computer's a musical instrument, and coding is one way to play it.
Yeah, and more so these days. I mean, you see many more videos popping up on, say, YouTube of people playing things that you wouldn't have expected to be instruments. For instance, the iPad, has become an instrument in its own right, with all the things you can do there. And I agree, it's great to have that big range of opportunities, and it probably speaks to some students who think in a particular way, more so than others. So, yeah, it opens it up there.
I was looking up, preparing for our conversation, I went back onto code.org to look up some stats because I always go there before I talk about Scratch and MaKey MaKeys and coding. But in the U.S., what did they say? 71% of new jobs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields are in computing, but only 8% of STEM graduates are computer science majors.
Yeah, right. That's so interesting. Wow.
And after the arts, computer science and engineering are the subjects that students enjoy the most.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Because in my head, it's always been a very dry sort of subject. And, when someone says the word coding to me, I picture, basically a dark screen, like a black screen with a lot of writing on it, which does not make sense, and that's kind of I think a lot of people's thought process when it comes to coding, that's what you picture in your head. But
right, and your stereotypical picture of someone who sits behind that desk
in a dark room and hasn't been out for 4 days. Yeah, and I do know people like that, but it doesn't have to be like that. And when you see videos like the MaKey MaKey, in action and people using Scratch and stuff, it's quite different and it's innovative and it's exciting and engaging and fun. So, tell us about the types of coding programming projects you've done with your students so far. And you've been doing this mostly with grade 6, is that right?
Yes, grade 6. My classes meet every day for a quarter of the year. So over the course of the school year, I see everybody in the 6th grade, but only for about 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So this usually happens around week 7, depending on how the quarter's going. And we use Scratch to create virtual instruments that are interactive. So in Scratch, you can program something where you just press a button and it goes through a whole process, like playing a whole song or playing a movie. But I require it to be something where you have to be actively engaging with the instrument that they make.
Yeah, right. Okay. So how, in what way does that work? So the kids start off, when you open up Scratch, there's sort of basically 2 areas of the screen. One is the list of instructions for the thing, and the other part of it is the thing. And I think they call it the sprite, don't they? So basically the sprite could be a character, or it could be a piano keyboard, or it could be on the screen that is a picture of a piano keyboard on a screen, or a shape or something else.
Right.
And so then, so they go in there. And so what sort of things are they creating? Do you say to them a specific instrument that they need to create, like a drum kit or a keyboard, or do they get choice?
I always start with the very first thing I do is demo how to make a sound. And when you open up Scratch, you see the sprite, the character of their little cat mascot.
Yep.
It's this cute little cat. And we go through very quickly how to have it meow, because some of the sprites, some of the characters, some of the pictures have sounds that are preloaded and attached to them. So the cat has a meow sound attached to it. And in 2 steps, you can make it meow.
Excellent.
The way that Scratch is set up, instead of typing out lines of code like we were talking about earlier, you have these little blocks that contain different pieces of code that you can adjust and change and reorder.
And each little one of those blocks is, it's basically like an instruction. So it might say, move forward or move back or something like that. That's right, isn't it? So you're sort of putting together, in order those steps, whatever it is you want them to do. And that then the character will actually carry out the steps once you set that in motion. Also.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it looks, when we talked about this, dark screen with light, text all over it, looking, and which sounds really dry and boring. And Scratch is nothing like that. It's quite brightly coloured. It's a light interface, and the coloured blocks of code are kind of like purple and yellow or blue and yellow or something like that.
Yeah, they have all sorts of different colours, and they're color coded based on what they're doing. So all the triggers, so like all the ones that start the code, like a mouse click or a key stroke, those are all one color. All the movement is another color. All the sound is a different color.
Yeah, right. Excellent. So Scratch has some pre-loaded sounds in it, which are basically short wave files, are they, or MP3 files or something?
Yeah. And they do also have MIDI instruments in there as well.
Yeah, right. And so, but then you can obviously create your own WAV files, which you would upload. So in theory, I guess you could make the cat say hello in your own voice if you recorded hello and then uploaded that.
You can actually record directly into it.
Oh, okay. Oh, excellent.
So you can cut that step out. If you have like an MP3 file or something that you want to use, you can upload that as well. But if you want to just record yourself speaking or playing something, you can just record directly into it.
Oh, that's really good. Cool. Excellent. Oh, that's great. And so, so you get them to make the cat meow, and then after that, what do they head off on after that?
Yeah. Then I'll usually show them how to make a drum set.
Oh, cool. Yep.
Pretty simply, and we map each drum, bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat, and crash cymbals, and we'll map each different instrument to the different arrow keys on the keyboard. So then it's something that they can play and they can improvise with. And I'll also show them a piano keyboard that I made where each key is programmed to a different key on the keyboard, typing keyboard. And from there, I just let them go. They can either recreate an instrument. I've had some kids make a bass, violin, drums, piano, ukulele, guitar. I had a girl make her own version of a launch pad.
Oh, really?
So she had this grid, and each square on the grid triggered a different sounds. And then other students just kind of make whatever they want to make. I'm very open to what constitutes a musical instrument.
And the image of the instrument or the picture, so let's use the drum kit as an example, they're using images which are already in the Scratch, sort of library or collection, or are they creating their own images? Because I think you can do that too, can't you?
Both, yeah. And you can also, sometimes they'll find a picture on Google and they'll save that image and upload that as their sprite, or depending on what they're doing, they might take a picture of themselves. You can use their built-in camera to create a sprite. Yeah, I have some students that use the built-in stuff. I have some that draw their own. It's a very wide open project.
Which I like. I think that's good because then they can go down their own path of interest and that sort of thing. And what do they do after that? Do you do other projects after that? or is that the main thing? I mean, you haven't got much time. You've got like 3 weeks left of your program. Do you spend most of that last bit on the coding stuff?
It's about a week on Scratch and then another 2 weeks on MaKey MaKey.
So in Scratch, after they've done that initial one, do you get them to do something else before moving on to the MaKey MaKey?
It depends on how quickly they finish. Sometimes I'll have them make another one or kind of expand on what they've done, or come up with a composition.
Yeah, right.
Using the instrument that they've created, because the goal is to make something that they can perform with or compose with. You
mentioned that you require them to have an involvement level, like what's the right word for it? It's early here and my brain's not quite.
Yeah, interactive.
Interactive, thank you.
Interactive.
I knew there was a better word. And so when they're using the instrument they've made, so basically they will press the arrow keys on their keyboard to trigger the sounds live. So they could play a drum pattern by pressing them in time or something like that. Yep. Okay, good. I'm just getting it straight in my mind. That's great. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have them write out the instructions on how to play it.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the Scratch project, each sprite, the scripts, the code for each sprite, you can't see all of them at once. You have to go from one to the next.
Right.
Because each set of code is attached to one character. Yes. So I have them type up simply just like to play the snare drum, press this key and so forth.
And the alternative, I presume you could also ask Scratch to play the whole drum pattern itself by programming the steps in sequence rather than you doing it manually. Yeah, that's great. So that's another good option and I guess another assignment in itself in a way.
Yeah. I did have a student program Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah,
and
right.
Figure out how to have Scratch play it, the whole thing.
Yeah, cool. And do the kids love it? Are they all really into it?
Most of them. They also use Scratch in their technology class, which is another quarter-long course. So they use Scratch there, but they do more animation and movies and things like that and drawing, but they don't do a whole lot with audio. So this kind of takes that other side of it and lets them expand on what they've done earlier in the year.
Yeah, because I can imagine there would be a lot of cross-curricular type possibilities, which would be really good. I know I know that the teachers I speak to quite often, if you can tick a box, that's a cross-curricular thing, like if you can tick the math box or the, literacy or whatever, it's always a big bonus. And I know here in Australia, I mean, coding generally is a much bigger part of the curriculum than it was in the past. It's kind of needs to be woven in across, the subject areas. And so I'm thinking this is a great way to get into it. And this ticks a lot of cross-curricular boxes, once you're involving the music and the computer science side of things. And then, depending on what project you do, you could also tick some boxes there as well. So absolutely. Yeah. I'm sort of, my mind's in that phase of, I can see lots of possibilities, and I'm just going to try and work out what they all are. I'm not quite there with what I love the idea of making an instrument. I think that's a great starting point, sort of a nice straightforward thing. But tell us about how the MaKey MaKey gets involved, and just maybe start with conceptually, like how does that fit in with Scratch? Because it's, two separate things, but they're going to work together to make the music essentially. Right.
So the MaKey MaKey kind of works as a way for you to physically interact with this virtual instrument that you've created. On the MaKey MaKey, there are ways to plug into the up, down, left, right, space bar, W, A, S, D, F, and G keys, as well as your mouse click.
And so instead of the students pressing the arrow keys, they're going to press something which is connected to the MaKey MaKey to play the keyboard or the drum kit that they've made in Scratch. Yeah. And that's where it gets really cool. So the bananas that we talked about, which makes me laugh. The very stereotypical kind of thing that people show in workshops. And it's funny, I mean, I've rocked up to workshops where the presenter's at the front of the room and there's basically a table and a row of fruit, like variety of fruit, which has been picked up somewhere. I've been doing a series of one-day conferences around different places, so we go interstate in Australia, and we've just gone to New Zealand and come back again, and it's the same presenters do most of those conferences, a bit of a travelling roadshow. But Cheryl, one of the other presenters, she does a lot of Scratch and MaKey MaKey stuff with her kids at school, but also has been doing workshops as well. So so her room is often set up at the front with this row of fruit, and I forgot to ask her, I'm sure she has to, because when we travel interstate, you can't take fruit, between the different states of Australia. In most cases, because of quarantine issues, you have to throw it out. They don't want to spread bugs and whatever through the different states of Australia. So you have to throw out fruit. So she can't bring it from home. So she must go and raid the hotel, or room or the local supermarket or something. I must ask her. So what else have you tried? Have you tried lots of different things with the MaKey MaKey kit?
I tried the only materials I've been able to use so far were Play-Doh, aluminum foil, pencil graphite.
Yep.
And I've tried with pipe cleaners that sometimes work, sometimes doesn't. You kind of have to peel some of the fuzz off.
Yeah, to get to the metal bit or the wire bit. Yep. And tell everybody about why that is. Why do some things work well and some don't work so well?
Yeah, the whole idea is to complete an electrical circuit. So when you're plugging these things into the MaKey MaKey, it's just one end of the circuit, and then you attach yourself to the ground of the circuit. And when you touch these things, that completes all those different circuits.
And that's what triggers the noise, yeah.
And you need conductive material.
Yeah, and so some things work really well. So water on YouTube, I've seen water being used as an example, which is amazing. What was one of the other? I mean, I think I mentioned the flowers, this girl with the flowers in vases, which looked amazing.
You can use different people.
Different people. I think on the website they say, here are some of the things you can use, and it's got like a banana, your grandmother, and a whole list of things.
I don't use water in my classroom because I'm too worried about it spilling. I'm too worried about it spilling onto one of the school laptops.
Yeah. I think that's a really wise move, actually.
And I don't allow fruit either.
Oh, really?
For that same reason.
Yeah. Just food.
Depending on the makeup of the class, I had one class this past quarter. I had 30 students in the class.
Wow.
And
30's crazy.
And to try and I barely had enough. I have 10 MaKey MaKeys, and working in groups, I was just able to get enough MaKey MaKeys for each group.
Yeah, so they worked in groups of 3 or so then for each set, did they? Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. I was going to ask about that actually, the setup of the equipment and stuff, because to start using Scratch is free. I mean, there's no cost involved. So you don't need to use the MaKey MaKeys to get Scratch to work. So if there are teachers listening that want to give it a go, they can just use the Scratch part on its own, and you'll use the computer keyboard to trigger stuff. But the MaKey MaKeys do add this added bonus cool element.
Yeah.
This episode of the Music Tech Teacher podcast is brought to you by the Midnight Music Community. The Midnight Music Community is an online space for music teachers who'd like help using technology in their music lessons. There are online courses, video tutorials, lesson plans, music tech news, and professional development certificates are provided for any training that you undertake. I'm inside the community every day, personally answering members' questions and sharing tips and ideas. The best thing is that you get to connect with hundreds of other music teachers just like you and share your own experiences and occasional music tech frustrations. For more information and a special joining price just for the listeners of this podcast, visit midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. That's midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. Yeah, so describe the kit to people. What do you get in the kit and how many students? I mean, you've just mentioned you use one kit with, say, 3 students or so.
Right.
But if you have more, obviously, it's better. Everything with technology.
I actually probably would still encourage them to work in groups of 3 or so. I do have a couple of students that do work really well on their own, but I like the collaborative part of it. I know you talked about collaboration on a previous podcast, and this is just another outlet for that, for collaborative music making.
And I think probably there's a big problem-solving element in, especially in using the MaKey MaKey, because they've got to work out how to complete that circuit, and so that would be better done in a group, I would imagine.
There's a lot of troubleshooting that goes on with the MaKey MaKeys.
Yeah, right.
Why isn't this working? Why is it playing 2 sounds at once? Oh, these wires are all touching each other. That's why it's all happening. Or you're not connected to the ground, or that doesn't conduct electricity, or... which is great. Awesome stuff to have to think about, really. Absolutely.
So tell people what's in the kit. I mean, there's a little, like a little board. Is that what you call it, the board?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a circuit board, and that's where everything plugs in, and it's got a USB port, and it comes with a USB cable that plugs right into your computer. It comes with a bunch of alligator clips that can clip into the board, and then also to whatever you're attaching to. And then it has some other cables that stick into the back that are kind of pins, and that's for some of the other outputs that are on the back of the MaKey MaKey. Yeah, when I was looking up to get mine, you can basically buy a kit which is all of those things in one kit. It's like I think I got a deluxe kit and had a few extra bits and pieces. It had some tape and stuff as well. So. Nice.
I know. I'm really hoping it arrives today. It should be good fun. I'm looking forward to playing with it. And my own kids, I've got my eldest is in grade 6, so he's at the same age of the kids you're working with. Yeah, and my younger one is only 16 months younger than him. So they're at this great age, and my youngest, who's also called Josh too, so great name. He's
perfect.
He's really into science stuff, and I think this is going to be right up his alley. He's a great musician too, but really into science and things, and sort of knowing how things work. So I reckon this is going to be really up his alley. I'm going to make them come up with some projects that I can use in workshops and suggest to other people.
Absolutely. Careful, he might take it away from you.
He may do. I may buy him one for Christmas. Another one will get a second set, which would be cool.
Well, now they make it easy to reprogram them, so you can change what the different letters and keyboard inputs are.
Oh, right. So in what way? What have they done to make it easier?
The newer ones, and I don't have one of the newer ones, unfortunately, but if you go to one of the MaKey MaKey websites, with the MaKey MaKey plugged in, it will let you reprogram it. So instead of being limited to the keys that we talked about, you can reprogram it to any key on your keyboard. So that way you can plug more than one in to the same computer and have all these different things that you can.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I didn't know that at all. Excellent. That's really cool. I can just see I'm going to get my one, and then instantly I'm going to be ordering the second and third set.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they're not too expensive. I mean, I think US dollars, we'll talk that because it's a bit more global in terms of currency, but
$50.
about 50 or $60 or so. In Australia, it's a little bit more. Not much more, though. It wasn't. Sometimes in Australia, when we go to buy things, it's another third of the cost on top or something like that. But it really wasn't that much different. The only difference I paid, I think, was just the postage, so the shipping delivery fee, which wasn't much. And yeah, there's a lot of places which are selling those kits. So if you're interested in looking at them, you can either buy them online like I did, but you can go to many of the distributors which sell kind of like education technology stuff, not necessarily a music shop or website, but they're more the general ed tech places. I found other ones that are selling them. So if anyone listening is going to a conference which has education technology sessions, I can almost guarantee someone there will be, showing them and also selling them too. So we're not getting any kickback for mentioning MaKey MaKey. It's just a really inventive tool and innovative and just opens up that whole, the whole area to anyone basically. And, for it to not cost too much money is great. When I first went to buy it, I was thinking, how much we're going to shelling out here, and is it a couple of $100? But no, less than $100 always makes me happy, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. And they even make a smaller one that fits on a keychain.
Yes,
for, I think like $20.
Yeah, it's like the size of a flash drive, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really tiny. I know. I almost bought that just to have it to show. And anyway, that'll be my second round of purchasing. Yeah, that looks
and I think
really
they
good.
have big class sets of like 12 of them.
They do,
yeah.
Yeah, so you can, so if you want to buy 10 at once, there's basically some kind of discount for doing that rather than buying 10 individual sets. And yeah, that looked really good. Not necessarily for me, it wasn't so much use for me, but yeah, if people want to set themselves up with that, I think it's a great thing to do and just so different. And so, where to from here? Are you planning on doing more stuff in the future or expanding it to other year levels? Because you work with, middle school, not just grade 6 students. Are you planning to do more in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to get some more musical projects out of this. I had some really interesting ideas that students came up with, but not a lot of them were terribly musical. So I did have one of the first quarter, I think it was the first quarter, I had a group that made a game board like the game Twister.
Oh, excellent.
And every color was a different sound, and it was a lot of fun, and they triggered different sounds, but not super musical. It had a little bit of John Cagey type stuff to it, but
I think one of the things I was thinking, and it's along those lines really, I mean, I end up often doing quite a bit of stuff around, say, sound effects, whether that ties in with film scoring or video game stuff or storytelling. And I think it would work really well with that. You could use that Twister board as a sound trigger board for sound effects that are part of a story, for instance, right. and the kids could record their own. And so for me, it's a great starter project getting kids to record sound effects because it's just short snippets of audio in most cases. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to get into audio recording without having to record a whole ensemble performance, 3-minute piece of music and making sure mics are set up for that whole thing. And then you get to the end and you find everything went wrong actually in bar 3 of the piece of music, and then they have to do the whole thing again. But if you're recording sound effects, that shortness of, recording, if you mess up a sound effect, it's not such a big deal, and basically you can, just do it again and without too much heartache. But I did see one of the videos on YouTube, one of the related videos, it was quite funny. It made me laugh because someone had set up the MaKey MaKey to basically connected a knife and a carrot to the computer, and they hooked up the Wilhelm scream sound. And I don't know if you know that scream, but it's a classic iconic scream, and it's been it's been a little bit of an in-joke with sound producers on films, and they slip this sound effect, which is a man screaming, and it's the most hilarious man screaming. It's a very girly scream, I think, in my mind. And basically that gets slipped into a lot of movies as a bit of an in-joke, and it's quite widely known now, so it's not much of an in-joke anymore, but you can hear this scream in heaps of movies. Like I just listened to another podcast.
It's in Star Wars.
Yeah, it is. It's in Star Wars and Jurassic Park, and it's everywhere. And so those people who recognize it would be watching the movie and like, they've used the scream, you know. So someone connected the knife and the carrot up to the scream. So when you chop the carrot, the carrot screams.
Oh no.
It's hilarious. I'll link to that video as well. But as soon as I saw the title, carrot screams when cut or something like that, I thought, I bet they've used the Wilhelm scream. And they did. Oh, so funny. Yeah, I'm really keen to work out what are some cool things I can do. But yeah, I think the sound effects thing could be really good.
I did have a group that wrote an original song. I also do ukuleles with my 6th grade for the first half of the quarter. And I had a group of girls that wrote an original song with ukuleles and lyrics, but they also wrote a piano part for MaKey MaKey Piano.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
And it was amazing.
Wow. Oh, that's even better. See, that really brings it into that real world situation. That's really cool.
And that was like, that's exactly what I want this project to be.
Yes. You don't have any...
The way it just wrapped everything up that we had done during the quarter was beautiful.
You don't have any video or audio of them doing that, do you, by any chance?
I do. I'm not sure if I
can share it. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
If you get to the point where you can share it for any reason, even if it's just the audio, it'd be great to see it. I'll try to dig up some examples of student work, whether it's yours or someone else's, but to put into
I'll try and get some audio of it. I know I have video, but I think if I extract the audio, I think I'll be all right.
That'd be great. Yeah, that would be really great. I know it's hard to share stuff sometimes, but there's not massive. I haven't found a lot of examples on YouTube of. Like I've seen the MaKey MaKey examples, but, kids in action with that sort of thing, like what you said, there's a few little videos of kids, having programmed Twinkle Twinkle into Scratch. And the teacher, the one that I looked at the other day, the teacher hasn't really explained what they're doing. It's just the computer playing Twinkle Twinkle. And for those people who don't know what the kid's done, it's kind of like, yeah, okay. So, what's the big deal? Where the kids actually spent a lot of time putting the steps into an order in Scratch and programming the whole thing. So I always think those things need a bit of framing before you show them to people so that people go, oh, right, that's really cool. That kid's done a great job and has an understanding of it. So, that would be great. And have you taken part in the Hour of Code at all?
I've seen it. I haven't taken part in it, and I haven't been able to work it into my curriculum. But the things that they use are very much based on Scratch.
Yes, because so the Hour of Code is, basically this sort of, it's like a celebration, isn't it, of coding and trying to get people into coding in a very non-threatening way, I suppose, just by doing an hour activity with your students in class. And the Hour of Code have a whole website and there's a specific date. I think it might be December. Is that right? I might be wrong.
I don't remember.
Anyway, I'll link again to that website too. But yeah, they do this sort of thing, and they've got heaps of activities on the Hour of Code website, lesson plans, and across all subjects. It's not just music stuff. There are some music ones too, but I think that would be a cool thing to tie it into that somehow as well.
Absolutely,
if it works for the time of year. December's a weird time for us here because it's basically our June, your June.
Yeah, it's your summer.
Yeah. We're coming up to the end, and a lot of teachers are, I am not tackling anything new at this point in the year. So.
And we're getting ready for our winter vacation and concerts and all
right.
craziness.
That's right. Yeah, because it's your December. Yeah, of course, that's crazy. It's been excellent talking to you. I will. I'll look forward to checking out your stuff a bit more. And I did notice that on your website, which I'll link to, has some slides from one of the presentations you did. I mean, obviously, it kind of needs you there to describe it and stuff, but there's some useful information on there, I think, as well. And so I'll link to that too, so people can take a look. But yeah, it'd be great to find some student examples somewhere. So yeah, if you manage to do that, it'd be great.
I'll get that audio to you, and we can link to that.
Yeah, cool. That would be excellent. Thanks so much, Josh. I'm really looking forward to having a go myself. I may be hitting you up with some questions about MaKey MaKey troubleshooting.
Absolutely. Please do. Please do.
All right, I will. It'll be next week when I'm in. And we're basically heading into a holiday here just for a couple of weeks. We've got like an end of term holiday for a couple of weeks. So I'm going to visit my dad who's interstate. He's on the Gold Gold Coast, a bit warmer than where I am, and he's a musician and his wife's a musician, and they're really into stuff, and so I'm gonna take it if it arrives in time, and we'll do some playing with bananas and stuff like that.
Gummy worms too apparently work.
Oh yes, I did see that. Yes, yeah. There's quite a few cool things. That conductive, paint and whatever looks great. And I meant to mention before, using that means that you can basically draw or paint a picture, which you can then play back with your fingers, and that really appeals to me. That looks beautiful. And one of the examples on that YouTube video, it looks beautiful. It's like a spiral of art, and they must have hooked up so many of the MaKey MaKey alligator clips, because every note has to be a separate alligator clip, doesn't it? Is that right?
Right.
And this picture has so many little components to it. They must have matched up, I don't know, 50. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, at least like 2 or 3 different MaKey MaKeys.
For the one picture. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it just looked beautiful. But yeah, it's really great, really innovative. So yeah, you can make artwork that is touchable and will sing to you and things like that. So very cool. So thanks again. And yeah, we'll get this episode up quickly, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it myself, and hopefully some other people listening will also give it a go and explore some options.
I hope so.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Josh. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you, Katie.
The Music Tech Teacher podcast is hosted by me, Katie Wardrobe. You can find more information and links from today's episode at midnightmusic.com.au/23. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.